The day I walked into the event I had spent months organizing and got told to step aside was the day I realized my family would never see me as anything more than convenient. Here's exactly how one call flipped everything upside down. My name is Harper Lane, and the day I arrived at the event space I had booked and paid for, only to be told I couldn't use it, was the day I stopped pretending to be the good daughter. I had spent months coordinating this launch event for my tech startup, paying for the venue with overtime, side gigs, and skipped weekends. I arrived expecting to see my decorations in place, vendors ready, and a quiet, controlled space. Instead, I walked into ring lights, camera rigs, and my younger brother, Eli, live streaming to his audience that this was his event venue. My tables, chairs, stage, even the projection screens all presented as his. And my mom, Marcy, was there smiling at the camera like she owned the place too. Before I could even say, "What is happening here?" she cut me off. "Harper, you've been traveling. The space was just sitting here. Eli needs it today. You can find another spot for your launch." When I said no, she didn't blink. Selfish Harper. Eli laughed into the mic, telling his viewers I was overreacting. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I walked straight to my prep table, saw my event materials shoved to the corner, and pulled out the one thing they hadn't touched. My hidden security drive with all event contracts and recordings. I smiled and called one number. 10 minutes later, there was a firm knock at the door. A calm voice said, "Austin Police Department. Ma'am, we need to confirm who booked this venue." The officers stepped in. Eli froze, trying to laugh it off as a prank. One asked him to mute the live stream, the other turned to me. ID and booking confirmation in hand, I was ready. My mom tried to intervene. "It's just a family matter. He's just helping with the event." The officer looked at the paperwork, the camera equipment, and Eli, and flatly said, "This looks like a commercial operation in a rented venue without proper authorization. If the owner has a problem, you need to resolve it. Mostly civil." They logged the complaint and warned about disruptions. After they left, my mom turned on me. "Happy now, Harper? You embarrassed us in front of the police." I just said, "I'm canceling your access. You have until tonight to get all your equipment out." And I did. Within hours, Eli's credentials for the venue were deactivated, and only I could authorize anyone to be inside. The next day, a group text. "Family meeting at the venue tomorrow." No excuses. They arrived like it was some intervention. My mom, Marcy, binder in hand. My dad, Greg, acting calm but controlling. Eli last. No camera this time, but still dressed like he was ready for a sponsorship shoot. Marcy spread printouts. "Harper, you travel so much. You don't really need the venue today. Here's a smaller, cheaper location for your launch. Eli can use this space for exposure." I stared. "You want me to move out of my own event so your golden boy can look successful online?" Eli rolled his eyes. "It's not that deep." The venue was empty. I opened my phone to his live stream. My event. My setup, my branding, his content now. He even claimed he paid for it with ad money. I zoomed in, a receipt showing my bank account. My mom waved it off. Details. We're building something bigger here. I laid out photos from that morning. Scuffed floors, coffee stains on rented tables, sticky residue where banners had been removed and replaced with neon logos he brought. I even found an email from a bank I didn't use. "Welcome to your new business account, Harper Lane." Eli's face twitched. He laughed nervously. "Just paperwork. Needed verification." I didn't argue. I just said, "You have 24 hours to remove all your gear. Stop using my name, my event, or my branding." After that, no more talking. Eli scoffed. My parents trailed him out, still muttering about ruined plans. I didn't chase. I texted my friend Nina. "Meet me at the coffee shop. I need you to see something." An hour later, I showed old streams, footage, and receipts proving Eli had used my event, my accounts, and my name as if it were his. Nina's face fell. "I thought he was just hustling," she whispered. "I didn't know he was taking from you." Something clicked. I started saving timestamps, screenshots, and clips, building a case. But as I dug deeper, I realized this wasn't just about an event being hijacked. My family wasn't just disrespecting me, they were actively misusing my identity and finances. And what I discovered next would change everything. The next morning, I returned to the venue early. The chaos from the live stream the night before had left behind messes. Discarded cables, half-drunk coffee cups, flyers torn or misplaced. My stomach churned. This was supposed to be my event, a launch I had poured months into. And now, It looked like someone else's playground. Nina arrived with coffee, and we immediately set up my laptop on the folding table. I had salvaged from the chaos. We started going through every clip, every live stream, every receipt and email I had saved. At first, it was just minor annoyances. Eli and his friends eating, shouting, dancing on tables while I had carefully planned the layout. But then it got worse. There were videos of him digging through my mail like it was a prop, joking to his audience that my packages just kept coming because I was a creator. Another clip, Eli pouring drinks on the event tables while laughing into his microphone, oblivious to security guards who were trying to keep the fire exits clear. My mom appeared in another clip, showing his friends around the venue, gesturing at the space like it belonged to all of them. Our downtown spot, she told the camera, casually undermining my ownership. Then we found something that made my heart sink. A shot of my work laptop, sitting open in the background during one of Eli's live streams. My employer's logo clearly visible. If any client had seen this, it would look like I was hosting wild parties during work hours, and that all the responsibility fell on me. I felt a wave of anger, but also clarity. This wasn't just disrespect, it was theft of identity, misuse of funds, and blatant misrepresentation. Nina leaned back and whispered, "Harper, this is more than a family fight. This is fraud, identity theft. You can't just talk them out of it. You need someone who can make them accountable." I nodded, feeling for the first time in months that I wasn't overreacting. I was building a case that couldn't be ignored. By mid-afternoon, I had timestamps, screenshots, and receipts all organized into a spreadsheet. Every instance of my money being spent, my name being used, or my event space misrepresented was noted. I took a deep breath and typed, "Identity Theft Attorney Austin." The first two offices didn't answer. The third picked up, "Daniel Reed, Civil Litigation and Identity Theft Specialist." I gave him the 2-minute version of events. He didn't interrupt, didn't question my sanity. Instead, he said calmly, "Bring everything you have. Today, if possible." That evening, I met Daniel in his office. The room smelled like leather and old coffee, nothing like the chaos of the venue. I laid out my laptop, the live streams, contracts, emails, and the folder from building management. He watched silently, rewinding clips when Eli handled my mail or claimed the event as his, pausing when he flashed my credit card in a stream. Finally, Daniel leaned back. "Harper, this is not just a sibling taking over your launch. This is unauthorized use of property, financial misrepresentation, and identity theft. You're in the right, and we can make them accountable." I swallowed hard. "What do I do?" "First," Daniel said, "we document everything. Civil side, damages to your event space, wrongful use, and a cease and desist demanding your brother stop using your name, your property, and your content. Criminal side, notify banks and platforms where he opened accounts under your name. We send letters to brands he misled." I felt my chest tighten. "That sounds nuclear." "It's necessary," he said. "Your family lit the fuse. You're just stepping out of the blast zone and letting the law do the talking." By the end of the day, Eli, Marcy, and Greg all received emails and physical letters, laying out in black and white what they had done and the consequences. Daniel added one last thing, a temporary protective order to keep Eli away from the venue, equipment, and any direct contact with me. 2 days later, there was another knock. A sheriff's deputy handed me the papers. Eli froze when he saw the packet, his first real glimpse of the consequences. My mom exploded in anger. "Harper, you can't be serious. He's your brother." I held the papers close. "No, he's someone who stole from me, and I'm done cleaning up after him." For the first time, I felt a floor beneath my feet that wasn't shaky. I was finally acting for myself, not for the comfort of a family that treated my hard work as theirs to exploit. But as soon as the legal letters were sent, the retaliation began, and I realized this fight wouldn't just be about money or property. It would be about exposing the full scale of the betrayal that had been hidden for years. The morning after the protective order was served, I arrived at the venue early again. Everything was quiet, eerily quiet. For months, this place had been my dream launch site, buzzing with activity, vendors, and excited guests. Now, without Eli's chaos, it felt like a ghost. I barely had time to take a breath when my phone buzzed. It was a group text from my parents. "Family meeting at the venue tonight. No excuses." I stared at it for a moment. No excuses? After everything? My chest tightened. I called Nina. "They're not done," I said. "They're still trying to control this." By evening, Marcy and Greg showed up, acting like nothing had changed. Marcy carried a binder, her expression smug. Greg followed, hands stuffed in his pockets. The same calm but manipulative act he always did. Eli arrived last, not streaming this time, but still with that smug, almost untouchable air. Marcy immediately started. We just want to talk about how we can make this work for everyone. She spread flyers and spreadsheets across the tables, suggesting alternate venues, shared profits, and ways to spin your launch as a collaborative family project. Harper, you're traveling so much. You don't need to be here all the time. This could be easier if Eli just runs a few events here. You can come in on weekends. I froze. You want me to give up control of my launch so he can look good online? I asked slowly. After using my name, my funds, my work, and my property for months? Eli rolled his eyes. It's not that big a deal, Harper. Chat loves it. People think it's our family brand. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Then I pulled out my laptop and opened the first set of compiled clips. I showed them. Eli opening mail addressed to me, misusing my credit card on camera, claiming the venue as his own, and my work laptop in the background during live streams. Marcy blinked. Greg leaned in, lips tight. Eli tried to laugh. It's just paperwork, Harper. You're making a scene. No, I said, voice steady. You're making this your brand. You took everything I worked for and pretended it was yours. And now it's all documented. I handed them the folder from Daniel, the attorney, and the temporary protective order. The room went silent. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the faint click of my laptop as I scrolled through receipts, screenshots, and timestamps. Marcy tried the guilt angle. We're your family. You're tearing us apart over a little misunderstanding. I shook my head. No, I'm protecting myself. For years you assumed I'd always say yes. I'm done saying yes to exploitation. This is not tearing the family apart. This is drawing a line. A clear, legal, undeniable line. Eli finally spoke, softer this time. Harper, I didn't think it would get this far. I just wanted to look successful. I thought you'd understand. I understand, I said. I understand exactly what you did. And now you will fix it. You stop using my name, my funds, my event space, and my identity in your content. You pay for damages. And you stay away from this venue. For a few seconds, they all looked like they might argue. But they couldn't. The protective order and Daniel's letters left no room to maneuver, no loophole. I realized then how much power I'd been ignoring for years. Proof, law, and boundaries. That night after they left, I sat with Nina in the quiet venue, sipping the lukewarm coffee I had salvaged from the morning. You did it, she said softly. You finally drew a line. I nodded. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Eli wouldn't take this quietly. Brands would call, followers would notice, and my family, well, they would never forgive me. But I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt anchored in my own rights, my own property, my own work, and I knew the fight wasn't over. Because the next morning, the emails started rolling and brands pulling sponsorships, followers questioning the family content, and Eli's empire starting to crumble. And that's when I realized revenge could be just as public as the betrayal. The morning after the confrontation, I woke to a flood of notifications. My phone buzzed constantly, emails, texts, and social media alerts. Brands that had been negotiating with Eli were suddenly asking questions. Donations to his streaming channels were frozen. Comments under his videos were filled with confusion, disbelief, and outrage. I scrolled through the messages carefully, trying not to get distracted. One brand had already pulled out of a deal, citing misrepresentation of ownership and potential fraud. Another was asking for proof of his claims about the venue and finances. Even some smaller sponsors I hadn't heard of were hitting my inbox, asking if the claims about me were accurate. Nina appeared beside me, holding 2 coffees, her face pale. Harper, this is bigger than I thought. The brands, the followers, they're seeing the truth now. They're realizing he built all this on your work. I exhaled slowly, leaning back in the chair. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant, but it was tempered by exhaustion. I didn't start this for revenge, I said. I started it to protect myself. But it's unavoidable now. By noon, Eli had posted a new video. Gone were the neon signs, the fancy skyline shots, the parties. Instead, it was him in a bare room, a mattress on the floor, looking small and defeated. He explained in halting words that he was taking a break to sort out personal issues. His audience, once loyal, reacted instantly. Comments questioned his credibility, accusing him of misleading viewers and using family property without consent. Meanwhile, the emails kept arriving. legal notices from banks for accounts opened in my name, refund requests for donations that had been collected under false pretenses, and most importantly, a note from Daniel. Eli's previous sponsors have confirmed they are withdrawing funding. This is exactly why we documented everything. I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of relief and vindication. The evidence I had painstakingly collected, the clips, screenshots, timestamps, was finally doing its job. The truth was out, undeniable, and in black and white. Later that day, Eli's phone rang constantly. I saw him pacing during one live stream, his expression tight, a mix of panic and frustration. For the first time, the golden child facade cracked. His chat, normally cheering him on, was full of questions. Is this true? How did this happen? Comments compared his claims to the screenshots I'd circulated privately through Daniel. Meanwhile, my parents tried their usual interventions calls, texts, even surprise visits, but this time I didn't engage. I let Daniel handle the correspondence. I had learned that arguing with them only blurred the boundaries I'd fought so hard to establish. By evening, there was a knock at my door. It wasn't Eli or my parents, it was a representative from one of his major sponsors, face tight and serious. "Ms. Harper?" she said. "We need to verify some information regarding claims made in his recent content and the venue use. If these are accurate, we will be suspending all agreements immediately." I nodded calmly, handing over documentation that Daniel had prepared. Every receipt, every screenshot, every timestamp was there. She reviewed it, eyes widening slightly as she flipped through the pages. "This is thorough," she said. "Thank you for your transparency. We'll proceed carefully." As she left, I felt the first true sense of closure since this nightmare began. For the first time, the leverage was finally mine. Not just legally, but publicly. The empire Eli had built on my name and work was unraveling, piece by piece. That night, Nina and I sat on the empty venue floor, the space finally quiet. "It's happening," she said softly. "He's losing it all." I nodded, sipping coffee. Not for revenge, for boundaries, for fairness, for me. Because the next morning, Eli's accounts were frozen, some brands were demanding refunds, and my parents were forced to face the fallout of enabling him. And just when I thought the storm had passed, a new challenge arrived, one that threatened to drag everything back into chaos. The next morning started like any other coffee. Emails and a sense of cautious anticipation. But within an hour, my inbox erupted. Notices from banks, brands, and streaming platforms piled in. Some were asking for proof of ownership, others demanding refunds for donations. The flood of documentation I had prepared with Daniel suddenly became the key to holding everything together. I had barely finished sorting the emails when there was a knock at the door. I peeked through the peephole. It was a sheriff's deputy, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Harper?" he asked. "We're serving papers regarding a civil and criminal complaint. Please sign to acknowledge receipt." I took the packet calmly. It detailed everything we had documented. Misuse of property, identity theft, and unauthorized financial accounts. Eli and my parents were listed as defendants. This wasn't just about the condo or the events anymore. This was a full legal reckoning. Nina appeared behind me, eyes wide. "Harper, this is serious. He could lose more than just followers now." I nodded, flipping through the pages. Exactly why I did it. Not revenge, just accountability. By mid-afternoon, Eli called. The ringtone was familiar, but I ignored it. He left a string of voicemails, alternating between pleading and anger, none of which made me want to answer. The first was a shaky, "I didn't mean for this to happen." "Please, Harper." The second, sharper, "You're ruining everything. You can't just destroy me." I saved them all, adding them to the growing evidence folder Daniel had recommended I keep. Every emotional plea, every admission, every slip became part of the record. Daniel called around the same time. "Harper, we need to prepare for mediation. The goal isn't to destroy anyone, it's to recover damages and secure your boundaries legally. This includes restitution for the misuse of your property, reimbursement for the accounts, and formal recognition that Eli cannot use your name or assets ever again." I exhaled. "I understand, I want this done. I'm done managing this chaos alone." The mediation day arrived faster than I expected. Downtown courthouse, long table, fluorescent lights reflecting off the polished floors. Eli was there, looking smaller than usual, shuffling papers and avoiding eye contact. My parents sat behind him, expressions tight and defensive. Daniel at my side was calm and precise. We started with Daniel laying out the facts. Ownership of the venue, unauthorized commercial use, misrepresentation online, and financial exploitation. He played key clips, Eli opening mail addressed to me, claiming sponsorships were his, hosting events without permission. Every video was time-stamped, every action documented. Eli's lawyer tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, claiming our parents had implied permission. Eli, glancing at his parents, muttered, "I thought it was fine. I didn't know." His words sounded hollow against the concrete evidence. The mediator asked me directly, "Harper, how has this affected you?" "Financially," I said, "thousands in damages. Potential fines from the HOA, lost opportunities for my own work. Legally, my identity had been compromised. Emotionally, I'd lived in a space where my privacy, my trust, and my life were treated like props. I remained calm, letting the weight of the evidence speak louder than my words. Daniel presented a preliminary accounting. Floor repairs, cleaning, legal fees, replacement items, restitution for accounts misused, and formal boundaries. The mediator nodded, acknowledging the thoroughness. Eli's expression turned pale as he realized the consequences were unavoidable. My parents whispered between themselves, clearly uncomfortable. Daniel leaned forward. "This isn't about punishment. It's about rectifying the misuse and protecting Harper's rights. Compliance is the only way to avoid further legal escalation." Eli's lips pressed tight. He didn't argue further. The room was tense, every eye on him as he realized the consequences weren't just a threat, they were immediate. By the end of mediation, the terms were clear. But Eli's world had already started crumbling. Sponsors were pulling out, followers were dropping, and my parents were forced to confront the reality of enabling him. And just when I thought the storm was almost over, a new development threatened to reopen wounds I thought I had finally closed. The day after mediation, silence in my apartment felt almost surreal. For the first time in months, there were no cameras, no live streams, no footsteps racing across the hall at 2 a.m., just quiet. I brewed coffee and sat on the couch, letting the gravity of what had happened sink in. Then my phone buzzed. Notifications from social media, email, even brand management platforms. Sponsors had seen the court filings, the police involvement, and the evidence Daniel had compiled. Eli's followers were dropping like sand through fingers. Comments piled up under his latest video. "Where's the penthouse tour? Why is everything gone? Is he even legitimate?" I scrolled silently, tracking the damage. Every missed donation, every canceled sponsorship, every dropped collaboration was proof that a life, built on someone else's work, collapses fast. It was surreal to watch, almost like a live lesson in accountability. By mid-afternoon, my parents called. Mom's voice trembled. "Harper, we didn't know it would get this bad. Sponsors, your brother. It's all falling apart." I kept my tone steady. "You enabled him. You stood by while he used my identity, my assets, my work. I'm not here to fix his failures. That's on him." She was quiet after that. My dad tried later with the usual soft approach. "Maybe you could forgive him? Let's rebuild as a family. The fallout could be temporary." I shook my head. "No, not like this. Not until boundaries are respected and restitution is complete. I'm done being the family safety net for chaos." Later that evening, Daniel called. "Harper, the preliminary compliance deadline for restitution is in 3 days. Eli has to start paying for damages, stop using your identity, and remove all references to your property in content." I exhaled, letting a sense of relief mingle with lingering tension. It's finally moving forward. No more behind-the-scenes theft, no more pretending it's fine. The next morning, a new wave hit. A brand that had previously sponsored Eli reached out directly to me. They asked for verification that he had misrepresented assets and requested proof of ownership. I sent copies of my documentation. Within hours, the brand publicly withdrew support, citing misrepresentation in their cancellation notice. Eli texted me frantically. "Harper, please. This is too far. I didn't mean..." I didn't reply. The law, documentation, and mediation terms would speak louder than any personal appeal. For once, I wasn't negotiating from fear or guilt. By the weekend, social media chatter had shifted. Eli's followers debated whether he'd ever been honest online. Some canceled subscriptions. Others mocked the collapse of his penthouse lifestyle. Even casual viewers realized that the glossy, curated life he'd shown was built on someone else's work. I watched it unfold with a strange mix of vindication and discomfort, because I'd never wanted public humiliation. I wanted justice. My parents showed up at my apartment unexpectedly. Mom held a folder of papers, clearly ready to negotiate. "Harper, can we talk? We want to help him get back on track." I let her speak, then calmly explained the mediation terms again. Every boundary, every restitution schedule, every restriction. No exceptions, no shortcuts. This wasn't about punishment, it was protecting my life from being co-opted again. She left, visibly shaken. My dad followed, trying the soft guilt angle again. I didn't argue. I simply said, I'm not the one who has to rebuild on borrowed foundations anymore. As they left, I checked my inbox again. Eli had sent the first installment of restitution. Not much, but enough to show compliance. My eyes lingered on the number, then shifted to my own account balance. For the first time in months, I felt a strange sense of ownership restored. Not just of my property or accounts, but of my own life. Eli's empire was collapsing online, sponsors were gone, and the family was finally facing consequences. But just when I thought the storm was settling, a new threat emerged, one that could drag everything I'd fought for back into chaos. And this time, it wasn't just my brother or my parents I'd have to deal with. Just as I was starting to breathe again, a new problem hit like a wave I hadn't seen coming. It wasn't Eli, it wasn't my parents, and it wasn't about restitution this time. It was someone from outside the family, a former collaborator of Eli's, who realized he'd been using my identity and property as collateral in content deals. I got the first email on a quiet Monday morning. The subject line read, "Urgent, potential legal exposure." The sender was a lawyer representing one of Eli's now canceled sponsors. They had discovered the misrepresentation in their contracts and wanted clarity from the rightful owner, me. I froze. For the first time, the consequences of everything Eli had done felt real in a way that wasn't just personal or familial. This wasn't social media fallout. This was a potential formal investigation with legal teeth. I called Daniel immediately. His voice was calm but firm. "Harper, this is why you documented everything. You have proof. Contracts, screenshots, videos, emails. They want confirmation, not argument. You respond truthfully, and you protect yourself. Do not try to fix Eli's mess. You are not responsible for his lies." We spent the next hour compiling every piece of evidence that clearly showed the misrepresentation came from Eli alone, and that my involvement was coerced by circumstance, not consent. Every screenshot of him using my address, every clip of him claiming ownership, every bank email, all organized, all labeled. By the afternoon, my inbox was filled with follow-ups. Eli tried messaging me again. "Harper, they're threatening lawsuits. Can't you just help me? Just say it's fine." I didn't respond. I let Daniel handle the communications. That was the hardest part, watching him scramble while I stayed calm, knowing I wasn't going to bail him out this time. Then another surprise. The HOA sent an update. Apparently another resident had complained about residual content activity in my unit, older videos showing footage of my property. If the HOA acted, I could be hit with fines or restrictions again, even though I had done nothing wrong. I called Daniel. "We need to show the HOA that all activity in the condo is under my control now. Complete cessation of Eli's content. No filming, no mail misuse, no trespassing." By evening, I had emailed every relevant party, HOA, former sponsors, and anyone who might claim exposure to the misrepresentation. My tone was professional, factual, ironclad. For the first time, I felt like I was not just defending myself, I was preventing a second wave. The next morning, Daniel called. "Harper, you did everything right. They cannot hold you accountable. Eli is on the hook. The HOA is satisfied. Sponsors have written acknowledgments. The case isn't over, but you are protected." I leaned back in my chair, letting that sink in. For months, I had fought my family, reclaimed my space, reclaimed my finances, but this was external validation that the law recognized my ownership. Then my phone buzzed. A comment under a forum post I'd made about family fraud. "Be careful. These people don't just disappear, they try to hit back through anyone you touch." I stared at the screen. The warning felt heavy but clear. I wasn't naive. I knew the road ahead might have more bumps, maybe more legal challenges, maybe reputational attacks, but I had prepared. I had boundaries, documentation, a lawyer, and my own sense of what I was protecting. For the first time, fear was not driving me. Strategy was. That night I sat on my balcony, the city lights stretching before me, and reflected. I had spent years accommodating my family, letting them monetize my life without consequence. Eli had built an empire on my name and address, and now the chaos he had caused had revealed a new truth. Life isn't about defending people who won't defend themselves, it's about protecting what's yours. I had won the battles with my family, but the war with the fallout from Eli's empire was only beginning. And just when I thought I could finally settle into peace, a new email arrived. A threat disguised as opportunity. It was time to face the ultimate test. Could I protect everything I had rebuilt without losing myself in the process? The new email from Eli's former business contact lingered in my inbox all day. It was polite, professional, but heavy with implication. Your brother's actions may expose further parties. Please respond carefully. I knew what that meant. Even though I had won the battles with my family and the HOA, the mess Eli had created could keep pulling me back if I didn't close every loose end. I called Daniel. "What's the safest way to handle this?" I asked. He paused, as if weighing his words. "Harper, you've documented everything. Any response needs to be factual, not emotional. Lay out what Eli did, what you did to protect yourself, and clarify your non-involvement. Anything else is giving them leverage." I spent the evening drafting a detailed letter. I included timestamps, screenshots, financial records, clips of Eli misrepresenting ownership, and clear proof that all content, after the police intervention, was under my control. By the time I hit send, I felt a weight lift. Not all the stress was gone. This was a legal minefield, but I had done everything in my power to protect myself. Then, the most unexpected thing happened. Eli reached out again, not with excuses or demands, but with a message that sounded almost human. "Harper, I know I can't undo what I did. I lost sponsors, followers, credibility. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I see now how much damage I caused, and I am trying to make it right legally and personally. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to own my mistakes." I stared at the message. For years, Eli had performed for everyone but me. Now, for the first time, he wasn't performing. I didn't reply. Forgiveness wasn't my goal, it never had been. My goal was reclaiming my life. A week later, the final payments arrived. The restitution check from Eli landed in my account with a note from his probation officer confirming the schedule. I held it in my hands and realized it felt surreal. Not like victory, but like a quiet acknowledgement of justice. The version of my family I had once believed in, the one that would protect me, that would respect me, was gone. In its place was reality. People who could be bound by law but not by trust. The next day, I sat on my balcony, watching the city skyline without neon reflections, or the hum of equipment echoing from my space. My condo finally felt like mine again. The floors were refinished, walls freshly painted, security system upgraded. I could breathe here. I could exist here. Not as a pawn, not as a prop, but as Harper Collins, the owner of her life. Calls with my parents became less tense, more factual. They had been forced to face the consequences of their complicity. They asked about reconciliation, about filming a family apology, or rebuilding Eli's brand. I said no. Any rebuilding would happen offline. Any apologies would be private. I had drawn the line, and it stayed drawn. Sometimes I still felt the sting of their betrayal. The years of being overlooked, dismissed, monetized. But each time I reminded myself, boundaries are not betrayal, they are protection. They are permission to reclaim what belongs to you. Months passed. Eli's social media accounts were dormant. Brands moved on, and my condo remained peaceful. I met Nina for tacos one evening, laughing at a stupid meme, our shoulders brushing lightly. Life had returned to its version of normal, but this time I had control. Not just of my space, but of my choices, my safety, my future. I wrote an anonymous post online about the ordeal, changing names, changing cities, but keeping the heart of the story intact. It blew up. Hundreds of comments from people sharing similar experiences. Stories of being taken advantage of by family, of learning that family is everything, only when it respects your boundaries. People wrote to say my post had given them courage to protect themselves. That mattered more than any restitution check or legal victory. One quiet morning, coffee in hand, I looked out at the skyline again. The city felt vast, calm, and mine. The lesson was simple but heavy. Love doesn't give anyone the right to take your life as collateral. Blood doesn't grant control. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect yourself. And most importantly, you are allowed to choose peace over performance. Safety over comfort of others, reality over illusion. Because sometimes, the only way to keep what you built is to let go of the people who thought it was theirs.